JIm Hanifan was an All-American in college at California. He led the nation in receiving one season. After college, he coached high school, then assistant football coach at universities at Utah, California, and San Diego State. He jumped to the pros with the St. Louis Football Cardinals, eventually became the Big Reds head coach for 5 seasons. Later, he worked as the offensive line coach with the Atlanta Falcons, the Washington Redskins, and then several years with the St. Louis Rams. He is generally considered to be the best offensive line coach in NFL history. Welcome, JIm Hanifan. Right there. And we're going to put a mic on him. We'll have lavalier mics on the guys so you can hear him. Dick Vemeil was the UCLA head coach for 2 seasons, and his second season knocked off top-ranked Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Then he was hired by the Philadelphia Eagles. He was the Eagles head coach for 7 seasons, and then when he simply felt he was burned out, he turned to television, spent 15 years working on television for CBS and ABC. The football world, I gotta tell you, was stunned when he returned to the NFL in 1997 as head coach of the Rams. We'll have more on that a bit later. But Dick is a great friend of the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame, and we appreciate him spending time with us today. Dick Vemeil. Our guest of honor, of course, is Kurt Warner. Kurt is truly, as I'm sure everyone in this room knows, a rags to riches story. He's a great example for the young people in our audience of never giving up. He played college football in Northern Iowa, was not drafted, was invited to the Green Bay Packers training camp, but they cut him before the season began. So he turned to the Arena Football League, where he turned in record-setting numbers. He is a member, by the way, of the Arena Football League Hall of Fame. The Rams signed him as a free agent in 1998 and allocated him to NFL Europe. Now, for the young people in the crowd, that league doesn't exist anymore, but he led the Amsterdam Admirals, led the league in passing and touchdowns. Then came 1999. He came back to the Rams in training camp, and he was the backup quarterback in training camp, and that's why we are here today. Please welcome Kurt Warner. All right, before we start, let's kind of set the scene here and find out what's keeping you guys busy. Dick, what's keeping you busy these days?
Well, the Vemeil wine business. You know, I have a hobby of making 150 cases of wine a year in Calistoga, my hometown in the Napa Valley, into a full-fledged business with 4 other guys and a couple of my ex-quarterbacks. And so I spend a lot of time, a number of days in St. Louis as well. So I do that the most, restore some old cars, and I do some hunting and fishing and make my wife mad. Other than that.
Well, one of your wines is 34. Of
Right.
course, after Super Bowl 34. It's really, really good, by the way.
Thank you.
But yours is kind of, I don't mean to disparage anybody, but kind of upscale wine, right? I mean, it's.
Well, little wineries cannot make cheap, inexpensive wine. There's no volume. So we'll make 2,400 cases of wine this year. Has to be good wine. There are people making 1 million cases of wine in the Napa Valley. 500,000 cases. So they can sell it cheaper, but the volume makes up it.
Right.
Ours, believe me, it's not a big deal. It's not a big business.
But your family was involved in that, wasn't it?
Well, my great-grandfather was, and then my on the Italian side of my family, and my grandfather on the French side of our family made all our family wines as a kid. And one of my assignments was to help him. We didn't have any labels on the bottle, but it was red and white, I know that.
JIm Hanifan, we see you handy a lot. We are in the same Monday club, I know, and what's keeping you busy these days?
Well, my wife.
I can relate to that.
But it is. No, I have a couple of little hamburger stores, so on and so forth with a couple of partners, so we're doing that, and that kind of keeps me going there. And then, of course, it's just like so many fellows, friends of mine, you have opportunities to see old friends and teammates and fellows that play ball for you, and you go here and you go there, and it's a lot of fun. I treasure it.
Do you grill those hamburgers yourself?
Once in a great while.
I've seen some video of you flipping them. I was just curious whether it was just an act or whether you really do it.
That was an act.
And Kurt, how about you? I know you're a busy guy. You work for NFL Network, right? And,
I do.
And really stay busy, I guess, all the time with your charities and your foundation.
Yeah, I mean, even though I'm retired, I still have 7 kids, so that's where it starts. Got a couple boys, see all these high school athletes here. I've got a son that's playing varsity football, so I'm helping coach him. Got a 10-year-old son that plays that I coach his team as well. Working on the NFL Network, doing radio for Westwood One. I'll be calling the game tonight, actually. Along with our foundations, the First Things First Foundation, which we still do a number of things back here, but around the country, we're also starting a new foundation that's really close to our heart. Our oldest son, our 25-year-old son, Zachary, who actually lives here in St. Louis, suffered a traumatic brain injury when he was 4 months old. And he has exceeded all expectations, graduated from high school, but when he was finished, we didn't really know what the future looked like for him. And, so we went in search of what's the next thing for Zach. And so right now, we're in the process of developing a supportive living community for young adults with disabilities so that they can, jump into the future and accomplish the purpose that God had for them. And so our first one, called Treasure House, will be built in Arizona in 2 years. And then we want to expand that around the country. So I got lots of things to do, plus I have a wife, too. So all that plus a wife, so it keeps me really busy. But it's perfect retirement, that busy doing a lot of things that I love to do, but the freedom to be able to make sure family's first.
Right. A lot of hungry kids at home, right?
Yes, a lot of them. Big, hungry kids.
Now, just as an aside, you said your son plays football. How do you feel about youth football these days? There's so much written about it, about concussions and problems like that. Is there enough protection? Do we need to work on that?
Always need to work on it. The one thing is, and we'll all attest to it, football is an unbelievable game. And what it presented me as an individual, what it taught me as a person, I wouldn't be the same person that I am today without what I learned through football and the relationships that I built through football. But we also know that it's a violent sport. And it's one of those things as a parent, you put on a completely different hat. When I played, we were stupid. And, it was... You couldn't have drugged me off the field. I was going to play regardless. Now you put on your parent hat and watch your kids, and the first thing I do is I watch them very closely to make sure I'm seeing everything that's going on. I'm watching specifically with head injuries, always communicating with my kids because that's a part of it. And I love the things that are being done by the NFL, all the way down to Pop Warner, making concessions to really protect kids and understand it's a great game and a lot of benefits, but we do have to do a better job of making sure that we're on top of it from a health standpoint.
Dick, there seems to be a lot more awareness now of the problem with concussions, and kids, or not kids really, but athletes continuing to play after they've had a concussion.
Right, and I think the awareness has really developed over since like 2007, 2008 on. Now all of a sudden there's dollars for research studies, and there are studies for the NFL to fall back on. We didn't have, my last year in coaching was January 2006. I never saw a concussion study, never did. And I think the other thing that's going to happen, in some of you old-timers here with silver hair like me remember playing football, we were taught to play with shoulder pads. I think you're going to see the use of the shoulder pad come back into the big phase of the fundamentals of the game rather than the helmet to the shoulder pad. And I think it's going to help prevent some minor injuries.
Okay, let's get started here. There was some reason to be optimistic in 1998. You had acquired Marshall Faulk from Indianapolis in a trade, and Trent Green of St. Louis in return as a starting quarterback. But things prior to that, when you came back in, you were 5-11 in '97, 4-12 in 1998, and I'm wondering, Did you wonder any time during the time, what am I doing? Why did I come back to this?
I felt that way my first year. What the hell am I doing here, you know? But, you know, I accepted the challenge. I didn't apply for the job. They offered it to me. I took it, and I'm glad I did. But I could not bring the same X and O coaching expertise back to the game after being away for 14 years, but I could bring back my process. I knew in my own mind how it had to be done.
Right.
It was an old-fashioned way. I made 2 early phone calls, one to Wilbert Montgomery, who had played for me and never coached. I said, Wilbert, you made me look pretty smart for 6 of the 7 years. I'm going to make you a football coach. He never coached a dime. He's still coaching. Second call, I called Hanifan. I said, Jim, I need some help. You're a St. Louis guy. I know you're working. You got a contract, but how about moving back? He moved back. So I surrounded myself with people like that could cover what I had forgotten.
Right.
I used to run my own offense, coordinate my own plays. I was an old-time Mike Martz, okay? But I knew I couldn't do that again. So I approached it, but I brought the process.
Your training camps were really tough, weren't they?
You bet your ass.
Well, I vividly remember covering the post-game news conference. You were nearly in tears.
Many times.
We used to take bets on how much you would cry after a game, but you were nearly in tears, and probably can guess what the know-it-all media was saying after this news conference, and you're going to see a little bit here on the screen.
Losing had been all too familiar for the St. Louis Rams of the 90s. And although new starting quarterback Trent Green would be lost for the season in August, the season would not be lost.
It hurts. That's what this business is all about. We will rally around Kurt Warner, and we'll play good football.
I know what the media said leaving that because I covered it. Yeah, right. I mean, you know, the previous 2 seasons, but turns out you were right, Greg.
Well, you know, I guess it's there. Yeah, you were right, and as the season got started, next was, Kurt's told that he's the starting quarterback, and I just asked him downstairs, I said, I'm going to ask you this question. What did you feel like when you stepped on that practice field for the first time, and you're not carrying one of these, but you are the quarterback?
Well, I mean, there was a couple things. I mean, the first thing was I was extremely excited. You know, outside of the fact that a good friend of mine and Trent had suffered an injury, nobody wants to get a job because of that. But outside of that, I mean, I had waited forever for the opportunity to get into the NFL and to get an opportunity to play. So there was a part of me that was so excited, saying, here it is. I finally got the chance that I've always wanted. But then I was extremely nervous. I mean, because, you know, what we had seen, and I think why Dick was crying was because he actually thought he was going to turn this thing around, and we were going to be good that year. I mean, Trent had played, he'd played almost flawless in preseason. You had Marshall and Torrey, and you have Isaac. I mean, everything was looking like, okay, this team is finally going to turn it around. Obviously, there was rumors in regards to Coach that if he didn't get it turned around that year, he probably wouldn't be back. You know, so I was nervous because I knew there was a lot of pieces in place, and here's this young kid who's never played that had to go out there and kind of, you know, lead this ship. So it was those 2 emotions that, man, I didn't want to screw it up. I didn't want to screw it up for me. I didn't want to screw it up for Coach and the guys. But, man, I was extremely excited because I had just waited and worked so long and so hard to finally get that opportunity.
What preseason game was that Trent went down?
It was the third one. San Diego
Third.
Charger game here.
Yeah. So you only had one game, one preseason game, Kurt, you know, prior to the start of the regular season.
Right.
Hattie, you know, you were responsible for that offensive line. You had to protect this guy, but you had a pretty good line, didn't you?
Very good line. And it all had come together. I mean, obviously, when you look back at it, let alone Kurt and so forth, but the line, Orlando had just come into being the guy that I thought he was going to be, that we all thought he was going to be, and that was the best left tackle in the game. And then we had 2 guys, Tommy Newton and Adam Timmerman, 2 guys that really came through for us. One guy's 7th round draft choice, a free agent, and another guy just totally a free agent. And both guys just played great football. Another free agent, it's center, Mike Rudodoria. And we had Freddie Miller and Ryan Tucker playing over there at right tackle. And the thing just came together. But the thing that I remember more than anything else about that season. I mean, the number one thing I remember, that very first regular season game, we're playing the Ravens. We did not know how good they were, and they did not know how good we were. And of course, we didn't know how good we were either. But, very confusing scenario there. But I still remember this because I only had 2 quarterbacks ever in my life come to me and say, can I talk to the line? And one was a hell of a Hall of Fame quarterback, just like this gentleman's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback soon. And so 2 guys in all my years of coaching. And the one, here he is, right here, Kurt, walks up to me, goes, Coach, he says, can I talk to the line? I looked at him, I went, damn right you can. He stepped forward and he goes, hey guys, work with me, and I'll get it done for you, okay? And I looked at those kids, Orlando and Tommy and Mike and Adam, Freddie and Ryan, and their eyes were like this. They were glued in on him. And I went, wow. Talking about leadership. We got a guy here now. He's going to take it. And they right then and there, they started believing in the man.
Kurt, what did you really say to him? Do you remember?
I have no idea. I was probably so nervous, I couldn't tell you what I said.
Please keep him off of me.
Amen. Yeah, that was what I was thinking. I might have been saying something else, but that's what I was thinking.
Well, Kurt was the orchestra leader, what was soon dubbed, as everybody in this room knows, the greatest show on turf. Week after week, they would light up the scoreboard, and Kurt became the darling of the NFL. How could this guy, virtually unknown at the start of the season, do this? It almost played like a movie. Here's an example of this magical season from the quarterback. Watch the video, please.
All it was going to take was an opportunity for me to get on the football field to show everybody what I could do, because nobody in this organization, nobody at this level had ever really seen me play football.
People are trying to find all these reasons about Kurt, his experiences here, and he did this, and Kurt's just that good.
As long as we, gave him our support, Kurt could get it done. And then it became as to where, Kurt was supporting all of us.
They're going to come up and smack you around a little bit, pull some cheap shots, it's just play football.
It just goes to show that there's guys out there that you just have to take a look at because they're winners.
That is a touchdown pass. Number 40. For Kurt Warner. Now in the 40 touchdown pass club, there's Dan Marino and there's Kurt Warner. Unbelievable.
This is his dream. This is what he always pictured himself doing. And he's just letting everybody else in on it.
Kurt Warner's dream had taken him from backup quarterback to league MVP in the span of one season.
In the span of one season. You just don't go from an unknown quarterback to MVP of the league and MVP of the Super Bowl in one season. But that's what happened. I can't imagine what was going through your body, what kind of vibration was in your heart.
Well, the funny thing is that I know nobody else knew anything about me. And I often say, I think Dick was crying because he thought this was over, that he had no idea that I could play football, because he really hadn't seen me play much. But I had played a lot of football, and I had played a lot of good football. I mean, crazy stories. I mean, I sat on the bench for 4 years in college, but I played 1 year, and I was the best player in my conference. I was voted player of the year in the conference. I played arena football. I was the best quarterback in arena football. I went to Europe, which, again, not very many people know about it. I was considered the best. So the reason I say that is because I know nobody else thought I could play, but I thought I could play. I knew I could play football. Everywhere I had been successful. And so it wasn't a surprise to me that I could go in and play. Was it a surprise that we played as well as we did? And of course it was. I mean, I don't think anybody would have expected that. But I had a lot of confidence in myself. I really believed that I could play. And it was funny, I was talking to some of the guys. I was actually talking to Kevin Carter last night. And we were talking about actually 1998. Because 1998, I was leading the scout team. And I was telling him, I remember tearing apart our defense every time I went. I mean, that was my Super Bowl. I wanted to go out every play and complete every pass and, make them go into films and go, what are you guys doing? Who is this guy that's just tearing you apart? You guys are terrible. But I remember that being, that to me, that was awesome. I was so happy to be in the NFL. I was so happy to be leading a scout team that every day I took great pride in completing every pass and making my defense, think that they were terrible. And so I really felt and had a lot of confidence in my ability. And then you couple that with, the unbelievable semblance of talent that I had around me. And, and I guess I'm here to say that I'm not surprised in the end of the day what we accomplished that year.
Yeah, Dick, he had a lot of help, didn't he?
Yes, he did. I'll tell you, he mentioned practice sessions in 1998. One advantage to being a head coach and not being your own offensive or defensive coordinator or position coach is you're coaching every position, every snap, every practice. And what I did, I formed an opinion every day. And when I said that we will play good football, I knew we would play good football. I didn't know we would go to the Super Bowl and win it, but I knew he could play. Now, I'll tell you this, if I were in New York and the head coach of the Giants, or maybe even Chicago Bears, they'd say, well, that guy is a personnel genius. In St. Louis, they call you lucky, okay? It pisses me off sometimes, it really does. London, no one gave London Fletcher a chance. No one gave Billy Jenkins a chance. Those two guys led our football team 2 years in a row in tackles. They weren't even drafted players. So being able to really evaluate everything this guy does. I remember going off our practice field and going to Peter Junta. I would say, Peter, our defense is either horse manure or Kurt Warner super. Okay, because he wouldn't throw an incomplete pass against our defense, and we're going to try to win Sunday. So it wasn't a secret that he could play. Remember this, he threw 11 balls in the NFL the year before, so he had a lot of experience.
Well, and I'll say too that not a lot of people know this, but Coach talking about him being able to see and understand before. I don't know the full story. I've heard some different renditions of it, but the year before when I actually made the team for the first time, it came down to the last cut, and from what I understand, Coach basically had all his coaches in a room, and he went around the room and he goes, okay, Wilfer or Kurt Warner, who should we keep? And he went around to all the different guys, and obviously made the decision to keep me. But I found out the next day, and we were walking down the hallway at Rams Park, and I ran into Coach, and he said, congratulations, and he just looked at me and he said, there's something special about you. And I remember that because that was my one chance. And but that's all he said. He said, there's something special about you, and I can't wait to see. And so it was something that he saw the year before in making this decision that nobody else saw.
Yeah. When you took the vote in the room, did he actually win it, or did you overrule it?
Will Fuhrer, our quarterback coach at that time, had coached Will Fuhrer in the past. And Will was not bad. Mm-hmm. He had played pretty well, and he was sort of, hedging back and forth. But I had 51% vote, but I never, and that was an unbelievable advantage, because our board of directors to run the St. Louis Rams football team was our coaches. Every decision was made based on how do we win a world championship. And that's it. There was no BS or this and this. And I'll tell you, there are very few NFL teams run like that anymore. But it did speed up the process, okay? And Hanifan was involved, and all the coaches were involved in every decision that I made. And I like you said, I said to him, I said, there's something about you that I like, and I can't wait to find out what it is. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Coach, did not all the team, now going into 1999, wasn't there a moment when every team had an opportunity to pick this guy
most people don't know this,
and
but we had to declare so many players on our roster up for the expansion team. We put Kurt on it. Now, before I did it, I called him and let him know that I'm going to do this. And I said, I can't guarantee no one's going to pull you off, but nobody knows about you what we know about you, and I don't think anybody will take you. If they do, you have to go. 31 other geniuses in the league passed him up, okay?
That's a great story. That's a great story.
By the way, Kurt, one of the greatest collectibles now, if you still have it, is that Amsterdam jersey. Do you still have that one?
I do. I still got it. Yeah.
How about that? That's a big one.
Let's back up a bit. The Rams won the season opener over Baltimore 27-10. No respect in the league because their bye week came in week 2. which was just ridiculous, but they had no respect at that point. Game 2, 35-7 pounding of Atlanta. Game 3, 38-10 over Cincinnati. Then came Game 4. And I think at this point, Rams fans, and maybe some of the media also, started to believe that maybe this is a pretty good team. Because the feeling was, you won 3-0, but can you beat San Francisco? Yeah, they did. Watch this.
Bruce had plenty to smile about in '99, especially in Week 5, when for the second straight game, a Ram receiver scored 4 touchdowns.
Bruce goes in motion to the right side. Warner pumps for him. Has him at the goal line. Touchdown, Rams!
St. Louis had lost 17 straight times to their nemesis, but this Rams team was more concerned with the present than the past, and they continued to pound the 49ers.
Isaac Bruce having his greatest day with 4 touchdown catches. Fakes, throws for the end zone. Caught! Touchdown, Rams!
A determined St. Louis defense pressured, then picked off the fading 49er offense. All that was left to unleash was a horn of plenty from the special teams.
Horn, the kick returner at the 4-yard line, takes the ball and stayed up a long time. He comes up the middle, gets across the 20, and he's got it! He's to the 40, 45, 50, down the sideline, 30, 20, 10, 5, into the end zone, Tony Horn!
Obviously, you could beat San Francisco. Something, Dick, we talk about the offense all the time. The defense gave up a lot of points in some games, but they were pretty good, weren't they?
The defense scored 8 touchdowns that year. Special teams scored 3, so, and we had a safety. So scored a lot of those 500-something points. 24% of the points were scored when the offense wasn't on the field. But the defense played well. They were number 1 against the run in the National Football League. They were number 6 overall. And they were led by 3 free agents that weren't drafted. Okay, Mike Jones made that. He was not a drafted football player. He was a college fullback at Missouri. Went on and made around, and we brought him to us. And one reason we brought him here, because Mike White had been at the Raiders, and he said, this guy will fit in a rebuilding program because he has great character. And he was a silent leader, and he did that. But anyway.
Andy, the special teams were pretty good that year, too.
Oh, tell me about it. Frank Gans, Sr.
Yeah. That's right, Frank Gans, right.
Passed away. Don't go get your knee operated on. It's a true story.
But Kurt, must have been great for you to be on the sideline and see kick returns like that. We haven't seen that in quite a while here.
Well, I think that's the great thing is that, so many people see us as the greatest show on turf and see us as an offensive football team. Right. But the people that were associated understood there was so much more to it and that we all complemented each other. What we did offensively complemented what our defense wanted to do. Tony Horn, you saw him last night. He was a guy that gave us a spark in so many games with what he did on special teams. It was just a special group of guys, and that 49er game was so special. A lot of us really hadn't been around, very long, but the 49ers had beaten us as the Rams 17 straight times. 17 straight times. And so even going into that game, we're 3-0, and I still remember the headlines that were sent out that said, the same old lambs, that it was basically, they're good, but the 49ers coming to town, and we'll show you guys that they're not for real. And we showed Isaac up there. Isaac was one guy that had been around and understood and had great pride and really was the ultimate pro. And I remember that week. That week was different for him. That was something that was special for him. And we go into that game, and he scored 3 first-quarter touchdowns in that game. He was over on the sideline, and he was hyperventilating because he was so amped up and so hyped up. But he just kind of let us know that this is where it starts. It starts with us having to beat the 49ers, that we're nothing, no matter how many games we win, if we can't win our division and prove to everybody that we're better than the 49ers. And so that was really, I think, when everything clicked.
And that's what people started to believe, I think. I really
exactly.
do.
The guy sitting right there to my right, and I were standing on the sideline. We were standing on the sideline on the 3rd touchdown pass. So help me God. He's there. I hit him like that. I said, Jim, this guy can play. It's exactly, there is a highlight film figured out. I have seen it. Me saying that to Hanifan.
I said,
This
exactly
guy
right.
can play.
And Jim said, yeah, you're right, you know, kind of casually, yeah, you're right.
The other thing Dick said was, did you, this is when Kurt looking over that, where you see him catch that third pass,
Yeah.
third TD, that's over here to his left.
Yeah.
But Kurt had come back and read his progression over here to the right. Now it wasn't there, the deep thing was not there, the middle thing wasn't there, the short thing. Now he turns back and he hits Ike out there about 35 yards down the left sideline. And Ike takes one move, beats the safety inside. And Dick says to me, did you see that? I can't quite tell you exactly what I said. Yes, I certainly did, with a lot of adjectives thrown in there. And I mean to tell you that it was a thing of beauty, you know, and you're like, oh my God.
You know, let me help Jim here. I know we're running out of time, but I learned a long time ago, football is not a contact sport, it's a combat sport, okay? Not like military war, but it is a combat sport. Just ask an offensive and defensive lineman. Ask these guys. And you never know how a guy is going to respond in combat until he's in combat. This guy, unbelievable in combat. Unbelievable in combat.
Move to the playoffs. Well, the Rams finished 13-3 that season, which seemed like an impossible dream when before the season started. The NFC divisional game, you beat the Minnesota Vikings 49-37. Kurt, an amazing second half. You guys scored 35 points in the second half.
Wow, I didn't remember that. All I remember about that game is that we talked a little bit about it if anybody was there last night. But we went into that game against Minnesota, and Coach Mike Martz told me 2 days before the game what was going to be our first play. And so he gave it to me. So for 2 days, I thought about every single scenario and how it could play out and what could happen. I would dream about it, dream about throwing a touchdown on my first play, you know, because I knew what the play was going to be. And sure enough, we went into that game, very first play, we threw a 75-yard touchdown pass to Isaac Bruce on that exact play. But, I mean, it was just kind of the epitome of the way the season went is, you know, Mike laid the play out, said this is what it's going to happen. This is how I think it's going to play out. I thought about it for 2 days. The very first playoff pass I ever threw was a 75-yard touchdown and was really the start of, you know, of something that we did special that year.
March was considered to be an offensive genius, of course. There were some game plans that you say, what do you want us to do?
You know, it was amazing because I don't know if I've ever been on a team that could have done what Mike asked us to do outside of that team. And we went into games, and I know most of you guys this won't make sense, but we went into games where we had 200 pass plays. I mean, if you throw a lot in the NFL, you're throwing 50 pass plays. We would have 200 pass plays on our game plan. And if you think about it, you go through practice throughout the week. I don't even know how many plays you can run. 150, maybe get to 200. But we would go into games where we had never practiced plays that were on our game plan. And he would call the plays in the game, and our guys would execute them, and we'd throw touchdown passes on them. I mean, it was like nothing I've ever seen before. And it was fun because every week he challenged us. We pushed the envelope. But he also trusted us. You know, to have a coach, I mean, do you know any coaches that would go into a game and say, we have never practiced this play, but we're going to run it anyway? I mean, coaches don't do that. I mean, coaches, they usually have to run it about 20 times before they feel comfortable ever calling a play. But it was that trust that they put in us to say, yeah, do it. Go for it on fourth down. You know, I trust these guys to throw the ball, to make plays. We make throw an interception. The very next play, ball's back in my hands to throw the football down the field. And it was that trust and the way that he pushed all of us and challenged us every week that I think made the biggest difference, because we just got better and better and better. And guys took great pride in wanting to do more and wanting to be the team that nobody has ever seen in the NFL. And we pushed the envelope every single week.
But 5 touchdowns in the second half. So you move on to the NFC Championship game, an unusual defensive battle. This was really kind of strange. Tampa Bay had only 2 field goals against the Rams defense, but it took a great pass and a spectacular catch by wide receiver Ricky Prohl with 4:44 left in regulation. Now, Kurt, that was the only touchdown pass of the season that Prohl caught. Because he was not one of the burners, but he's a great possession receiver, right?
He was. And again, another thing about that team is that we had so many guys that played their role and played their role so well. And a lot of people wouldn't remember that Ricky Pohl was the team's MVP the year before. He was that good. He was the team's MVP, and he was our fourth receiver on the team in '99. But he was so special and did so many things for us, and we couldn't get him in the end zone. And I'll never forget, because the last game of the year against Philadelphia, he had not gotten in the end zone, and high-flying offense, and everybody's scoring touchdowns, and Ricky hasn't got in. And we ran a play where it was kind of like an all-go, and Ricky was wide open down the middle of the field, and I threw a lousy pass, and he had to dive for it and slide and got touched at the 10-yard line or something, where he would have walked into the end zone. And I'm thinking, really, did I just blow a chance to get Ricky in the end zone? So how fitting was it that his only touchdown of the year came on a play that nobody would have expected that we would have gone to Ricky in that situation. He makes that great catch, and I could tell you stories about that whole play too. I know that we don't have time, but he makes that great catch on a go route, which, again, probably isn't his forte, to put us into the Super Bowl, coupled with our defense that nobody gave credit to, was really the reason that we had the chance to get to the Super Bowl. So many things came together, I think, that season where not enough people give credit to all the pieces that were involved.
That was in the corner of the end zone, wasn't it? The pro catch, yeah.
Yep, left corner of the end zone.
Yeah, Kurt, and I've heard you say before, just a miraculous catch it was. And if he doesn't make that catch, don't go to the Super Bowl, probably.
Probably. There's no doubt. I mean, we were doing absolutely nothing offensively. Thank goodness that the defense was stopping them, holding up, and giving us a chance. But, the story of that play, it's funny that all week long we had talked about, and again, I'm going to give you some football terms, but a side adjustment. A side adjustment is simply when a defense brings too many guys for us to block, and so our receiver has to change his route. He has to adjust his route so we can get the ball off before I get hit. So all week long we talked about Tampa was really good, and they would read things. They knew when they would force you to have to throw quick. So we were coming up to that play, and they were showing us 4 guys coming weak, which would have forced a side adjustment. And we ended up calling a timeout on that play. And so we had seen it coming, and I grabbed Ricky because we had talked all week about, hey, we're going to run, just a go route when this happens. And I sat down with Ricky, and I'm like, okay, they looked like they were going to show this. Do we want to do a 9 route, or should we just do a hit so we can complete it? And we said, what the heck? We haven't done anything offensively. Let's do it. If they come back with that same blitz, which we were like, there's no way. We just saw it. There's no way they're going to. We'll just run a 9, and we'll try to get that one big shot and maybe get in the end zone. And sure enough, they came back after the timeout, brought the exact same blitz. We adjusted to the 9. Ricky went up and made the catch, and as they say, the rest is history.
So then to Super Bowl 34, January 30th, 2000, it was an unusual, cold, icy day in Atlanta. Fortunately, they were playing indoors at the Georgia Dome against the Tennessee Titans, ironically coached for the young people in the crowd by Jeff Fisher, the current Rams coach. Enjoy this 4-minute look back at Super Bowl 34.
There's no man stand between you and greatness. With victory is ours.
The curtain opened on the final act of the 1999 NFL season. The St. Louis Rams were faced with the ultimate test. Fortunately, it was a well-rehearsed act for defense that quickly disarmed Tennessee's weapons. But the NFL's top-ranked offense had to rely on Jeff Wilkins to put points on the board. Kurt Warner threw for 277 yards in the first half. And the quick hands of rookie Torrey Holt produced a bountiful harvest. But in the end, their efforts remained fruitless.
He throws the end zone. Touchdown. No, they say incomplete. Torrey Holt was there. He had the football and then was hit by Blaine Bishop. The Rams have been marching all over the field against the Tennessee Titans. They've been unable to get into the end zone, but they do have 3 Jeff Wilkins field goals.
A flash of light shot through the Titans' third-quarter field goal attempt. and DeMarco Farr recovered to give the Rams possession. Warner then connected with tight end Ernie Conwell, putting St. Louis in position for a rookie's redemption.
Goes the end zone. Touchdown, Rams. Torrey Holt.
Still, the Titans retaliated. With the game tied at 16, Kurt Warner needed another miracle.
One good drive. One good drive.
One good drive turned into one great play.
Warner back to throw. Rainbows the far sideline, and it is caught by Isaac Bruce.
Warner's bomb vaulted him into the Super Bowl record books with 414 yards passing. Future head coach Mike Martz called for this offensive explosion that put the Rams in striking distance of the Lombardi Trophy. With just 6 seconds left, Mike Jones would deliver the final blow.
That's a game. It's over.
I still get chills when I see that after all these years. The one thing I want to ask you about, Dick, it wasn't in the video, but it was the time with only 1 or 2 plays left when a couple of your defensive linemen came off the field and you said, "What are you doing? There's only one."
Well, we had a rule. Carl Harrison, coach of defensive line, as a defensive lineman, and when you get exhausted, you take yourself out of the ball game. Well, Kevin Carter had been playing his butt off and chasing the big quarterback all over, and he couldn't get him down on the ground. So he comes off, got 35 seconds left in the game, and he comes jogging off right in front of me with 35 seconds. And I was shocked, and I didn't think about why we had that rule in, but I didn't like it. I know that. And what I didn't know, honest to God, I didn't find this out until this last year, that DeMarco Farr was right behind him. He never told me that. But he went right back in the game and helped us win the football game on the next snap. But when your best, most dominant defensive lineman comes out of the game with 35 seconds to go, it startles you.
Yeah, DeMarco said, if Coach said anything to me, I was going to throw up. I was that exhausted, I was that gassed. But that was remarkable. Kurt, what do you feel when you see that?
Oh, I mean, it's just, just like Coach said. I mean, just so much about that season was just, it seemed magical. I mean, it almost seemed easy at times. You get here and, dreamed of playing in the NFL, and then to do what we did and accomplish what we had accomplished. And I think, the best offense to ever play in the National Football. I still believe that to this day with what we accomplished at that time. To have things play out, and we talked about Tampa Bay, and have a crazy scenario like that. I mean, things that happened, in that Super Bowl. You dream of, I don't know, for how many years and how many times I, threw the touchdown pass with 2 minutes to go in the Super Bowl to win I mean, and then it plays out like that. Coach, right before I went out on the field, he said, this is how you've dreamed it 1,000,000 times. Now go win it. And, I mean, it's just, and then, Mike Jones to make that tackle, you're watching the whole thing and you're 1 yard away. I mean, everything about it was just so magical, and I think it just brings back memories when we're hanging out with the guys last night, or you're seeing the highlights up there of how truly special that group was and that season was, because I don't know if it could have played out any better than it did.
Was Isaac the primary receiver in that play? Was that what it was designed?
I mean, all of our plays are designed to go to different guys depending on what the coverage was. But I will say, again, that week, and again, I'm always getting technical with football terms, but that week we had talked about that particular play was called 999, which was it was all go routes. And the way Tennessee liked to play defense is they like to play, up above our receivers. So we talked about throwing these back shoulder throws, which you see all the time in the NFL now. It wasn't really a part of the game. It wasn't really a part of our team. But we talked about it, all week long, is, hey, we're going to have an opportunity at some point to kind of drop it on their back shoulder because we'll be able to turn and adjust to it and make a play. And we didn't call the play the whole game until there with 2 minutes to go, and probably was a back shoulder throw because I got hit by, Javon Curse. It probably wasn't by intention, but, left it a little bit short, which allowed Isaac to adjust to it. And then obviously the great catch and Oz, the great, knock there just to spring him for the touchdown. But I mean, so many little things, like I said, like that, we talk about it all week. Oh, you think 2 minutes ago, I guess it doesn't come into play. And that one pass, exactly what the coaches said, exactly what we talked about in practice, came into play. And then I don't think it could have been better that Isaac is the one that catches the pass to win the Super Bowl.
Because he's the one that came to St. Louis from Los Angeles. He was an original Ram out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Coach, your reaction when you see that video? You've seen it a million times, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I have. But I'm not a guy that goes back and looks at a lot of stuff in the past. I really don't. When I think about our football team, I think about starting at 1997 and the whole thing. And a lot of our guys feel, London Fletcher expressed that so well. I thought, it's the whole evolution, the whole process, and then the end result. When I said, woo-hoo, it's all right, we won it, I was reflecting over 3 years, not just 1 minute. What most people don't realize, and I'll close this up because we got to get going, we have our whole team's meeting at lunch, is that the last pass this guy threw in the NFC Championship was the touchdown pass to win it. The last pass he threw in the Super Bowl was the touchdown pass to win it. The last pass he threw in the Arizona game, touchdown pass to win it. The defense came back and gave it up. I told him that the first time he hadn't even thought about it. I said, Kurt, the last 3 passes you threw were for us, for me as one football game. He hadn't even put them together. That's how humble he is. But I don't think, that's why I'll be in the Hall of Fame in the first vote, right? Yeah. You betcha.
Absolutely. And that's why Kurt is here today. We thank you for coming. Jim, thank you. Dick, thank you so much. Yeah. And Greg is going to do the official duties here. Kurt, it's just been a delight to have you relive all that. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. That's
Brenda, if you'll come up, I think that you're part of this. You're part of this.
Big part of this, right?
And remember, folks, if you want the parking ticket in the back.
Well, let's do it officially. Kurt Warner, quarterback, St. Louis Rams, 1998-2003. One of the greatest success stories in NFL history. Best undrafted player in NFL history. Leader of the Rams' greatest show on turf. Won 2000 Super Bowl with Rams and was game MVP. Played in 2002 and 2008 Super Bowls. Owns 3 highest Super Bowl passing yardage in Super Bowl history. Holds top 3 passing record for Super Bowl games. 2-time NFL Most Valuable Player, 1999-2001. 4-time Pro Bowl team, 1999, 2000, 2001, and 2008. Fastest player in NFL history to pass for 30,000 yards. Created First Things First Foundation 2001 to help all those in need with faith and family, his motto. Enshrined this day, October 13th, 2014, welcome Kurt Warner to the St. Louis Sports Hall of Fame.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm supposed to say something.
Yes.
Am I supposed to say something? All right, I will. I tell you what, they've actually been asking me to come back and receive this for a while. And I always feel kind of weird about, being inducted into a Hall of Fame because football is the ultimate team sport. And, nothing I ever could have been done without my teammates. And so it's always hard. But I will tell you that the reason that I finally chose to come back was because of all of you in the community of St. Louis. Because St. Louis has such a special place for my wife and I and our family. And, you know, everything for us really started here. And so just truly honored to receive this, but more importantly, to go down in history in St. Louis, because this place is so special, and they continue to be so special to us. We come back every year, and we get nothing but open arms. We continue to run different foundation programs here in St. Louis, and every year is bigger than the year before, even though we haven't lived in St. Louis for a decade. But that's what St. Louis is all about. That's what our time here was all about. And we're up here talking about a bunch of football players that won a Super Bowl, but I promise you, everybody up here felt that it wasn't just a football team. It was an entire community that came together at a point in time that made it so special. And I know everybody says St. Louis is a baseball town, but I promise you, for at least a few years, this was a football town. And there was nothing like it, and it was so special. So I'm just honored to be a part of St. Louis history, St. Louis sports history in this way, and I thank you guys all for coming out today.
Kurt Warner.